first thing you got to do is you got to come in and you got to do Monday's show. So we got Monday, we got Nitro, 3 hours. Okay? So after that, on Tuesday, we're going to do Thunder. So we got to do 2 hours. Well, Thunder's taped. So in order to do Thunder, you have to write this 3 hour Nitro.
Right.
So that Thunder makes sense. So now you're writing
Right.
10 hours.
You're
10 hours of TV. Writing 10 hours of TV to make that situation work, which was fucking. I mean, that show should have. And Eric will say that was one of the biggest. Going to 3 hours was horrifying. This was horrifying. If it would have stayed that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about guest booking.
Right.
Because they wouldn't have. You know? But these, I mean, that was, and then you get to here, and a guy gets, because it's taped here, gets hurt, then this all changes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And it goes on and on and on. Then you got guys with creative control that at 7 o'clock on this day just say, doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for me, brother.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Booking philosophy, as explained by Kevin Nash, or at least booking the nightmare that was WCW and his live versus tape shows. Sounds like tape shows and booking for them can be a little difficult when you have things that happen in real life that throw you off. I guess we'll get to that a little bit later. Hello, folks. This is the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. You are listening to your host, Mr. Green, as I go through a couple of these things that's going on in the world of primarily women's wrestling. Not just all WOW. I mean, I know WOW has been the crutch of a lot of this, but not just all WOW. We got a couple of different things in there too. But I felt like it was a necessity I needed to get somebody with a voice who wrestling fans would recognize and know, that talked about some booking issues, and I figured, you know, what better way than to have Big Sexy do it, as he talked about the problems going on with Thunder and Nitro. In any case, let us go into the world of wrestling and address a couple of things, because there's a lot. There's a lot that's going on here, and I want to make sure that I cover as much as I can. I didn't realize it was so much stuff that was kind of lingering over me this week. But, you know, hey, it is what it is, and we'll get through this the best we can. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you know that the WWE has decided to issue new championship belts. Now, I don't know why they decide to do these swaps. You know, because it almost always necessitates, if they draft one champion, then you know the other one that's already on the show is going to go to the opposite brand. It's no surprise. It's no big thing. And then it requires them to decide, okay, how are we going to get the belt from one person to the next? Now, that wasn't a problem with Roman, because he has both of them. But when you're the Raw Women's Champion and you're the SmackDown Women's Champion, but you take your Raw Women's Championship to SmackDown and vice versa, it pretty much necessitates them having to do a swap or an exchange of some sort, unless You just take a new championship belt and you give it to them, which has no specific brand identity attached to it, which I guess is fine. I mean, I don't know why why they even bother to tell the world that they have a brand split that they're going to stick with. They've never stuck to a brand split. The most they did is the first time they ever tried it, but they have never stuck to this brand split. It is a waste of time. I don't know why they bother. How difficult is it just to say that champions are draft ineligible? I mean, I think that would be pretty easy to do. Like, you can't draft them. So long as you're the championship, you know that you're good. But anyway, so we got new championship belts, both given to the current champions, Rhea Ripley, whose championship belt is basically a female version of the one that Seth Rollins has. And then you got Asuka, and she has assumably a female version of what Roman has got. So rather than to have, again, the brand specific championship belts, they just have neutral color belts now. So no more red and blue. Apparently, we're pretty much done with that. We're just into the new era of gold, and of course, being the walking billboard that is the WWE logo that's plastered all over the thing. So, not saying that the belts look bad. I really, really, really wish they would take some time and effort to at least try to make these things look unique, rather than just, all right, here's our template, let's crank out another one. Anyway. So yeah, I thought that was worth bringing up. We had to at least acknowledge that these belts have been created and passed over and passed on. So congratulations to both Asuka and Rhea Ripley on that. For those of you that are outside of the, wait a minute, I was going to say outside of WWE, but I still got a few more little WWE related notes to issue here. July 15th. I'm sure somebody out there would care, but and she probably would be fine here. But for those fans of Alicia Fox, she will be making an appearance. She is returning to the world of wrestling. Can you believe it? But it won't be for WWE directly. It'll be for what I would consider a WWE adjacent type thing. She is going to appear at Booker T's Reality of Wrestling on July 15th. Alicia Fox will be there. Now, it's not been stated what specifically she's going to do. Is she just doing the meet and greet? Is she actually going to work a match? I have not watched this episode of Reality Wrestling that announced this, but she will be there. That is the breaking news that they have issued, that, or I guess Booker T put out on his Twitter, that Alicia Fox is making her return to wrestling, and it will be at Reality Wrestling, The Row, which I think is still syndicated across some CW networks. And that would be July 15th in Texas at the Row Arena. If I'm, let me, I would just say at the Row. I'm not going to say at the Row Arena. I believe it's there, but I don't want to commit myself to that because I don't have that information in front of me. So yeah, July 15th, for those who want to tune in, or for those who are there and want to appear or see her live, there you go. You got that. The women's tag team champions and championships. We know that the WWE has not had a really good, I don't say run, but they haven't really treated those belts incredibly well since they have lost favor with them. I mean, like I said they were going to do, because the WWE was playing with the women's championships and divisions so long as it was the bright new toy that they had. You remember that? You remember when they did the whole women's evolution thing, and that whole year they were so bound and determined to make sure that the world knew that we are progressive and that we're moving our women's forward, and they cranked out everything that they could possibly crank out. I mean, yes, it started out on NXT, but then it just, the Mae Young Classic. When was the last time we got one of those? But on the main roster, I mean, it was a big deal because they wanted the world to see it. They made press releases and they did all sorts of stuff. And what did they start off with? Not in any particular order, but they did the women's Royal Rumble. They did the women's Money in the Bank. They did their tag team championships that they released. They reissued the Raw and SmackDown championships at the time. They main evented WrestleMania. There was all these things that they did that they wanted to be able to tell people, look at us, we have done it. We're the WWE. We're progressive. We move forward, etc., etc. Now the shine is off of that. And the WWE, and yes, there's still, good women's matches and they're very talented ladies there, but they certainly are not taking their full division seriously, as it is related by Ronda Rousey. Rousey, who just, along with her friend, fellow four horsewoman from the MMA or the UFC four horsewomen, Baszler, and now they're women's tag team champions. But we've got Rousey, who made comments pertaining to that. And, I will say this. I know some people don't necessarily care for her these days, but I will say this for Rousey. She sits in a position where the rest of the women that's on that roster cannot sit. She doesn't care. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I just mean that the threat of we're going to let you go or we're going to bury you underneath our booking or something along those lines is not going to affect Ronda Rousey, because I think she'd sooner walk out than allow them to just book her into oblivion. Like, you're going to lose every week or something, like do something stupid like that to try to get even with her. She has enough money, clout, and leverage to where if she chose, screw this, I'm done, there's not really much that they can do to stop her. I mean, if Sasha Banks and Naomi were able to walk out and not have any problems, then I don't want to say problems, but walk out and not have any real major backlash from WWE, other than the fact that they got pissy about it and decided to get on TV and try to weaponize their audience against them. They let you down. They let all of you down. They walked out on us and blah, blah, that. You remember that speech that Michael Cole gave? Yeah, that was the WWE trying to weaponize their audience to be mad at Sasha Banks and Naomi when they were pretty much in the wrong here. And this whole thing, in my view, proves it. I'm going to read what the quote that Ronda Rousey said when talking about the women's division. Well, the lack of competition is really the problem. I mean, we want to be the most active champions out there. I wanted to be able to defend this title every week, even twice a week on both SmackDown and Raw. But with how dismally shallow the women's division is right now, there's not enough women around here to keep us busy for a month. And so that's the biggest challenge, that we have to get this company to actually care and invest into this tag team division. That was Ronda Rousey's words about the tag team division. Now, on May 16th, 2022, a little over a year ago, this is the same thing that Sasha and Naomi walked out of that company for. That fans out there who fell into that weaponizing thing that the WWE did, well, we'll just say Vince McMahon, because that he was the one that pulled the trigger and said, say something about him. The same thing that they gave them all kinds of crap for, because they took their job seriously. And they didn't want for that division to be treated like a joke, because they wanted it to be something. They wanted to prop it up and elevate it. And the WWE, for all intents and purposes, fought against them. They wouldn't allow them to prop it up. They wouldn't allow them to elevate it. They wouldn't create any tag teams. All they do is they just rotate one interchangeable face to another to be a part of a tag team when we don't have anything to do for you singularly. As I just said, this is the same problem that they had over a year ago, and nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. The only difference is now is, like I said, Ronda Rousey is able to get on any platform and say these things without fear of what they may do to her. Because if they do enough or they threaten her enough, she'll just leave. It's about the leverage. She has leverage. She still has a name. She could probably go back to UFC if she wanted to. I doubt that she does. But I'm sure that she can also take a run to Hollywood or something or just stay at home. She's made money. She probably does not need this in order for her to live. So, it's a sad state of affairs that is at this point where a problem that existed over a year ago has not been addressed, and they haven't even bothered to do anything to fix it. Or acknowledge it, for that matter. It's not like the WWE has a large track record over the last 20 years of wanting a bunch of good tag teams in the first place. But they certainly don't want to do that for the women's tag. Those titles were a waste of time. That's all they were. They were a complete waste of time. It was only there to accommodate the narrative that we are moving forward and we care about our women's division. If they keep going on this rate, they'll be right back to where they were 10 years ago when the women's matches probably ran for about 5 minutes in the course of a 3-hour show. Anyhow, speaking of, the now Mercedes Moné and Trinity Fatu, the former Sasha Banks and Naomi. Trinity made an appearance on the daytime talk show Sherry. You can see that on YouTube. She talks about her leaving the WWE. I mean, it's pretty vague. It's not like a shoot interview. It's not along those lines. Sherry is clearly a fan and kind of supporting this. She's talking to her, like she would any other person, like an actor. Like, what's on your mind next? What are you gonna do? And she does bring up Impact Wrestling. Of course, that's where she is right now. She's had a couple of matches there already. I think both of which you can go onto their YouTube channel and see. But yeah, that entire interview with Trinity Fatu is on YouTube. You can just seek out Sherry Shepherd Show, and you probably find it there. Mercedes Moné is still recovering from injury following the title match that she had with Willow Nightingale. From what I understand, that injury pretty much derailed what they were going to do with Mercedes at that time. She was scheduled to win. From everything that I understand, she was due to win that women's championship, but because the injury happened during the match, an audible was called, and Willow Nightingale got the championship anyway. So, I mean, unfortunate for Mercedes, because essentially that championship was, it was destined for her, for all intents and purposes. The New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Women's title, that belt was more or less destined for Mercedes, and it may still be, but she's got to get over the injury first. She says she's coming back, and I believe she is. But as of right now, Willow Nightingale, another former WOW competitor who just moved on to another wrestling organization. She was eye candy back in those days, for those who may not remember. But Willow is now champion for New Japan and working AEW and just across the wrestling landscape. So I guess good on her. And we wish Mercedes Moné a speedy recovery, that she is able to get back in the ring. I believe that is a busted ankle. Last report I read is that it might be a very strong sprain and not necessarily a break. Hopefully for Mercedes, it is not that. Kiera Hogan, another former WOW competitor, as Fire, is set to take on I was about to say Anthem. Anthem is a company. Athena, the current Ring of Honor Women's Champion. So Kiera Hogan and Athena are due to get it on at a Chicago street fight on June. Was July 15th. I believe that's it. I might have to go back and check the date. But what I did want to bring up about that was the brutality that this is probably the most I've seen Kiera Hogan being used. Her going to Ring of Honor may have been the best thing for her. I mean, she and Athena, it looked like they had some beef. It looked like they had beef with each other. After the match, I mean, I'm looking at this thing. I'm watching them take these shots. I mean, and just all the facials and the referees trying to get into the way, and all that. There was a lot of heat going into that. That's pretty much all I can say. There was a lot of heat going into that, and it was something to be seen. And they still have some, another encounter in the future they have to deal with. Now, what I meant to say is they've had their match. I'm about a day behind as I'm recording this, so they've done the street fight. That was I'm sorry. They've done the brawl that I was talking about, which was following the match. They are due to have their match on June 2nd, the 22nd. June 22nd, it will be a Chicago street fight. So as I'm recording this is the 16th. They got a couple of days before they head in that. Well, June 15th is what I was trying to get across earlier, and I apologize. June 15th, I got my date mixed up. It was Athena who defeated Trish Adora for the Women's Championship. And some of you may know Trish Adora, some of you may not. She was there on the tail end of Ring of Honor just before the Sinclair era ended with Ring of Honor. Trish Adora was a part of that. In fact, I believe she was part of that last tournament to crown their champion, and the whole documentary that they did, which I thought was a little underwhelming. The documentary is basically just a documentary on the tournament. I mean, they talked about it like it was going to be for the entirety of their women's division and the history, but it was more or less like a backstage pass to see what was going on during the course of that tournament. But I bring that up to say, if you want to see Trish Adora in action, then you could probably just go onto the Ring of Honor YouTube page or a channel, and you can see Trish Adora in action. Of course, you can see her on Independence. You can just Google it out. But yeah, I got my dates backwards there. June 15th, Athena took on Trish Adora. Now she is heading into her match with Kiera Hogan, who apparently is going to be her biggest rival at the moment. It is interesting to me, though, I will say, that they have found their way back to each other. And I say back to each other because when I interviewed Kiera several years ago, she went down to a tryout for WWE on the same weekend that Athena went down and tried out for WWE. And I remember during that interview, and it is up available on my YouTube channel, the Women's Pro Wrestling Network YouTube channel. Kiera was saying within the course of that interview, she's like, I was down there with Athena, and they signed her on the spot. They wanted her, they got her, and they signed her right then and right there that weekend as part of NXT, and that's when you got Ember Moon. Kiera just left there. She didn't get signed, but it did open her up, and she was able to go to Impact Wrestling following that. And from that point on, she had been on national television, pretty much nonstop. She went to Impact, and then while she was on Impact, simultaneously she did WOW, because it didn't interfere with the schedules, as far as I could remember. Then when she left WOW and Impact Wrestling, she went to AEW, became one of the baddies there. And now within AEW, I mean, because technically she's still underneath the same roof, she's been migrated over to Ring of Honor. So, and back around, full circle, back around to the same person that she met when they were both going out for WWE. Just a little side note there. I thought that would, kind of wrap that in because I think it's a little interesting point. And thank you for dealing with me as I fumbled over the dates. Lastly, outside of the review, I want to say congratulations to Brooklyn Creed. Southern Fried Championship Wrestling recently just crowned its first women's champion. Despite the fact that that company in this region had existed for 10 years. I mean, it is a long-standing independent. A lot of them don't make it past 5. I mean, so really, really bravo to them. But this is the first time they've had a women's champion. They've brought women in and they've had women's championships defended there, but they never had a champion that represented their own personal company. And this is their first, Brooklyn Creed. And I really hope to see her do some other things and make some big moves. Again, congratulations. And it is much like the Kiera Hogan Athena deal, and this is a spoiler. So if you don't want to hear this, you probably need to skip ahead just a little bit, maybe about 30, 40 seconds or so. But it was, I'm going to give it a little time for you to skip ahead. Okay, still here? All right, good. So if you wanted to hear this and how it ended and not see it, yeah, Brooklyn Creed, it came down to her and her bitter rival, Crystal Rose, which I thought was very apropos, much like Kiera Hogan coming full circle against Athena. I thought that was very much full circle, that those two would come at it again. They literally, just before and a little bit during the pandemic, they essentially propped up wrestling for women in the Southeast region, particularly Georgia and Alabama and maybe part of Tennessee. They propped it up. They were booked all over the place, and they kept wrestling each other over and over and over again. I mean, I have a playlist on my page right now. I keep saying page, I mean channel, but I have a playlist on my channel right now that has Creed versus Rose, and the presentation changes, but the matchup, just keeps evolving. They get better with each other. And when I mean the presentation, of course, you got heel one place and babyface the other. In Southern Fried, Brooklyn's an absolute babyface. She's one of the most singularly beloved wrestlers that's there. Whereas in the opposite side of that are Anarchy Pro Wrestling, which is formerly, or at least exists in the same space as the former NWA Wildside, the same company that birthed AJ Styles, and in some cases, I know Abyss was there as Prince Justice, and a few other people. That it was kind of like that pre-TNA, that pre-2002 TNA crowd. So you had a couple of those guys that migrated out. But the point being is that Crystal Rose was a product of that promotion, and in that area, she's a babyface. So it's kind of like Bret Hart or Jerry Lawler in Memphis versus everywhere else, or Bret Hart in Canada versus everywhere else. One place he's beloved, all other places hated. So I will end that just to say congratulations again, and also congratulations to Crystal Rose. I mean, she gave it a heck of a try, but Brooklyn was just the better woman that day. So now we can go into the WoW review and give this show give it the old once over. So this is episode 39 that we are coming to now. Episode 39. They are still moving. I wish I could take credit for that, that they haven't taken in hiatus, because I had been preaching that to the top of my lungs. Stop taking these breaks, and they finally stopped taking the breaks. Now, I can't say that I was responsible for that, but I'm glad that somewhere somebody in that company actually said and spoke up and said, let's change this. Let's do something different because this is not going to work. We keep taking these breaks. It gives too much time for things to go wrong and things to get derailed. So let's just keep this thing cooking. And they have. So bravo. As most WoW episodes are, they start off with their show recap and then a preview of the main event. I mean, that's segment one. That's segment one, very easy. They always have it. And, you know, they're trying to keep you in line or keep certain people in your mind and how this is going and who's doing what. If there's anything I would pay attention to, or ask anybody to pay attention to, I would say, you know, if you notice, Lauren Huntley's outfit has changed, which signifies a new taping date. If you're ever trying to see how many episodes you can get out of a singular taping day, keep your eyes on the ring announcer's outfit. When it doesn't change, it's all the same day. I mean, you know, theoretically, once it changes, you know you moved on. So segment one is the first match of the show. This is BK Rhythm taking on the debut of Ariel Sky. Ariel Sky, for those who are wondering whether she's a WoW original or not, she's actually somebody that wrestles on the independents. She wrestles under the name of Nikki Duke. That's Nikki with Nikii. It's a weird spelling. But if you look her up, you'll see who I'm talking about. Nikki Duke is who she is. And she looks great, and she didn't just get into wrestling just because it'll fill my time since I'm no longer doing gymnastics or what have you. She actually got in this on her own, and then I think she went and tried out for a while, and lo and behold, here she is. They did not give any sort of introductory video for her, thank goodness, because it's like introductory video on WoW means you're cursed and destined to lose. They did not do that. They talked her up last week. They was like, and next week will be the debut of Ariel Sky. But there's nothing wrong with that. I was glad to see it. So what we have here is we got BK. She starts out the match doing the same thing, doing the same, Jane Cena shtick. And this puts the shine largely on Sky. Sky works as the clear babyface in this equation. She, how can I put? She did fine. Nobody here, I thought, outran or outdid or brutalized the other. It was nice back and forth. That's probably about the best way I could do it. But I also felt like when I walked into this match, I was like, there's probably a very good chance that BK Rhythm is going to lose this thing because she always loses. And I know some people out there are under the impression or they've fallen into the WWE trope of, well, wins and losses don't matter. Yes, they do. They matter. Sorry. They matter. When you want somebody to be taken seriously as a threat or a competitor, even in fiction, they have to win something. That's a age-old trope. That is something that is told to you when you enter like a writing class. Forget wrestling. If you're looking at Spider-Man, for instance, and every time you saw the Green Goblin, he always lost, no matter what the circumstances, then what kind of a threat would he be to Spider-Man? He doesn't have to win against Spider-Man necessarily, but he has to win somewhere. He has to do something sometime to establish himself as a threat, which, of course, he did, especially in later years of the comics. But that's neither here nor there. I know some people are like, what are we talking about here? But I say that to say that BK Rhythm's track record here, it reminds me so much of like the Disciplinarian. They like having some of these people being related as a threat of some sort, but they're just not. They're not. And they just never will be at the rate they're going. But in any case, the one thing I can say here is that Rhythm probably did more to try and make Sky look good than anything. But again, there's no real dominance in the match that I made note of, that I can recall, that I can see. I mean, it was a nice match. I mean, it was a nice debut match. And it did what that match was supposed to do. The match was there to kind of, illustrate who Ariel Sky is. Now, before I go forth in the match about that, the other note that I had here when I saw Ariel Sky was like, okay, how many more wrestlers do they need for a 1 hour show? How many more do you need? How many more people do you have to hire? I do realize there are people that are leaving and, or whatever. Some people either leave or some of them are not asked to come back. But in either case, it's still a 1 hour show. And a lot of these wrestlers on the show are lost in the shuffle as it is. Who else do you need? And nobody almost establishes a personality outside of I have a gimmick and you can see me for that. But when you remove that, I'm like, what? We don't know anything about them, and you're going to add more people that you are going to know less about. So anyway, let's just move on back into the match. At some point, Ariel Sky tries to go for a moonsault. BK Rhythm gets up, yanks her ankle, pulls her down, and, with the old heel stick, she takes control. Of course, Ariel Sky does not give up. She kicks out of all these things. She's fighting back. She's showing the guts as BK Rhythm is doing what BK Rhythm can do, or what she's trying to do to try to score this win, right? At some point, Sky is able to reestablish control. She does what would have been like a version of Trish Stratus's springboard bulldog. It didn't really look good because she didn't get up to the top rope with it. She being Ariel Sky, she got her feet on the second, and it seemed like they were moving in slow motion when she did it. But she hits her with the second rope springboard bulldog, and then that sets BK Rhythm up for the coup de grace, which for Ariel Sky is the moonsault. She does a near picture perfect moonsault and scores the win. Now, she moves slow as she could possibly go when she's going up to the top rope, but she did get up to the top rope and she hit that moonsault and she scored the win there. And what do you know? We have to have an interview following that. Not mad about the interview. It's just, I keep saying Dave McClain does not have to do everything. I've said it a couple of times here. It's like, how many of these do you have to do? He's the lead interviewer. He's the lead commentator. He's the matchmaker. So in some cases, he might be the ring announcer. I still maintain he needs to throttle back on some of that. You've got other people there. You got people that's working for you. Letting them do some of this. But Dave McClain gets up from the commentary table and goes in after the match for a 30-second interview, which is not an accurate count, but that's about what it is. It was almost not worth doing. It basically was him going in and saying, hey, Ariel Sky, you won the match. Tell me something. And then she's, oh, thank you for having me here. And I'm so lucky to be a part of WOW, as she starts to cry. There's a part of me that feels like that was just played up. I don't know if she if she found herself legit overwhelmed with emotion and legit having to cry, but yeah, there's part of me that feels like that is just kind of played up just a little bit. So you have that, and you got this young lady who is oh so happy to be there. So good on her. We go to the next segment, and we have a recap of Jessie Jones having her leg broken, and this sets up what happens next, which would be revenge. Revenge for an event that took place weeks ago. This is another one of those things I'm not sure I understand this, because this was a month back. Where the Heavy Metal Sisters allegedly broke Jessie Jones's leg. That happened a month ago. And Americana is just now getting to a point where she's pissed off about it, enough about it to where I got to attack you or, challenge you to a match. This entire thing was ridiculous. The editors did a great job. The editors for that recap package, they did a great job, because one of the complaints that I had at the time was like, oh man, come on. You could see that chair did not come close to Jessie Jones's leg or knee. And how would it break it in the first place? She's smacking it on the ground. She's not hitting anything. And it was very clear that she wasn't hitting anything. The editors here took, I don't want to say painstaking effort, but they took effort to make sure that wasn't seen. In the recap, there's just a second or so of the actual hit. But because of the way that they filtered the footage and they put a little effect on top of it, like at impact, there's a little shake, something like that. And it's very quick, nothing distracting. But when they did it, I mean, that took that away. They erased the visual of the chair shot being bad. And I'm fine with that. But what I am not happy with is why this plan for revenge for somebody who's been in the same building with you for weeks. Why now? I can tell you why. But we're going to go into the match first, and that'll explain some of it. So this match was supposed to be Fury, the muscle of the Heavy Metal Sisters, versus Americana. Now, Fury's coming out there with Razor and Mesmeriah, who's returned from who knows where. And Americana charges right in. The first note I wrote with that is this is the most fire I've ever seen from her. Explanation point. So on that regard, I was like, okay, yeah, but what is this about? All right. All this did is that if it made the Heavy Metal Sisters retaliate, and then they beat up Americana. I was like, why is fire? Kiera Hogan's name just kept popping in my head for some reason. But the Heavy Metal Sisters retaliate. Razor and Mesmeriah came into the ring, and they beat her up, as they should have. But they did the next best thing following this, is that once the heels get on there, the clock is ticking. And who comes in to save Americana but Stephy Slays and Jennifer Florez? So they saved the day from the beating that Americana would have took. I assume that this match was thrown out because they really didn't announce anything past that point that I can recall. And then we got Americana cutting the promo. It is not good, but she's trying. I'll give her that. Now, the context of what she's saying, here we go at this nonsense again. So when she gets on the microphone and says, Jessie Jones, you hurt my friend. I mean, this isn't verbatim, so look it up when you get a chance. You hurt my friend, and you broke her leg. She won't be able to wrestle again. Jessie Jones is announced as not being able to wrestle anymore. Now, I don't know whether that means she's left the company or whether she was legit hurt, which I doubt, and she's just going to steer into the managerial role. Now, the only reason that I doubt it is because I know that one of the companies that I've advertised for in this, in this podcast, which would be the Custom Vixens, she'll be there. she'll be at Custom Vixens. I want to say within the next 2-3 weeks. So I'm like, well, the knee can't be that bad. She's still walking around on it. She's still doing, matches on it. So, and if I see her any place like a professional wrestling environment outside of WoW, then I'm really going to call WoW out on it. Like, nope. She didn't chicken out. She just chose to do something else. But I am wondering, is this the write-off for Jessie Jones? Is this the time when they finally say, okay, yeah, we're done. We're going to let Jessie go and move on? So I give Americana credit for the effort of trying to relate what her angle is. But this is silly. I'm going to come out 4 weeks after the fact that you attacked my friend, and now I'm going to try to get even with you a month later. That's ridiculous. And to add on to that, she's got to say that, and you guys broke my son's tablet. This is yet again another non-scene angle. Why do we keep getting these angles of things that they're talking about that we haven't seen? That is the reason that I put that clip of Kevin Nash talking about booking errors at the front of this show. For that reason alone. Because I'm almost positive things like this are due to it being taped and these marathon tapings that they do, and they feel like they can't cover it all. It's like, could you not at least get a camera phone and a tablet and have one of them just stomp on it and walk off? How hard would it have been? I don't know. I mean, I assume that would be easy. I would think that would be easy. I would think that at this point they would take the idea that I pitched on, a while back on several episodes. Give your employees or your contracted players tripods and a little clamp that holds your phone in place, and let them take it home. If you have situations like this, it should be made into the contract that you need to be able to save segments that may have gone wrong for a variety of reasons. By taking this tripod home and a clamp, you can use your phone and cut me a promo and maybe fill in some blanks. But when you're in the building and you're in the middle of the ring, I was like, why didn't they just shoot this? Why? What is the problem here? And again, you heard it at the beginning. If something goes wrong in this taped environment, it ruins everything going forward. Now, I understand that because that there's been a lot of wrestling promotions over the years that have taped, and those things do happen. But sometimes you also got to cut your loss. If you have a match that's on the books, on tape, on a hard drive, and that match no longer makes sense, you got to cut that match. I know you don't want to do it, but you may have to cut that match. But this lack of continuity with WoW is just so irritating. I mean, and they do reasonable matches. In some cases, I'll say very good matches, but this continuity problem is just, what is going on? Let's just go back to the first match for a second, the BK Rhythm match. Where was Levi, her alleged number one fan? She's been in like 2 matches since Americana announced that, oh yeah, she's she's his favorite. I have yet to see that boy out of the ringside cheering for her. Yet to see that. Probably because he didn't want her. He's just there and they just wrote him into it. But I have yet to see him at ringside for who we've been told is his favorite wrestler. I have yet to see, these angles that take place in the middle of the angle, this is like they already had a feud going. And this is another bump in the fuse. Like, hey, you broke my son's tail. How did that happen? Did he leave it on the floor? Was he giving him lip? Was he saying you guys suck? And then they just took it from him? Nothing. All we have is her word. All we got is Americana's word that this took place at all. this is just not good. I'm sorry, it's not. But the match was thrown out, like I said, after Razor Mesmerized jumped in, and Florez and Slays came out for the save. The match, they just walked off. They just walked off and said, screw it, And it's been thrown out. So it was match 2, but there's no real winner there. But this idea of non-scene story, that this happens too much. They need to stop that unless they can have something that can be talked up. I mean, if it was a good enough talker, they probably could have fixed that situation. But all due respect to Americana, she is not a good talker. She's not a good promo. She's not a good interview. Doesn't give a lot of personality. Doesn't, it's like a deer in headlights when she's cutting a promo. It's like somebody caught her eye and she just got to keep staring blankly at the cameras or something. But after she makes this and she talks about she's going to get even and you stepped on my son's tablet, she she does a mic drop, which, gosh. Yeah, or I should say, yeah, she drops the mic attempting to do the old mic drop thing. It just didn't work for me. That did not work for me at all. The next segment is the recap of the Mother Trucker's story. Then we go to, I should say, Mother Trucker's story as it relates to Samantha Smart. And then we go to the backstage video with Campanelli and Rah Rah as they sit in their locker room and they openly talk about Ice Cold hopping from one team to the next. Now, I will say I thought that was a nice touch. It's a nice touch to acknowledge and incorporate that into a promo. Nice touch there. Because then if anybody had watched this at great length, that would be something that you would have noticed. Is that she started off singles and then she partnered up with Samantha Smart and her crew, and then she got fed up with them, and then she left and she partnered up with Exile. And now Exile seems like is bottoming out. But what are you gonna say? But it was nice that Campanelli called it out. I thought that was a little funny for them. But the next thing you have while this is going on backstage is Rah Rah suggesting getting a squad together. And that was I think, Campanelli's cue. She was like, all right, we got a match. Let's go. So they kind of left that open-ended. I have no idea whether they're going to follow up with that or not. I honestly, I have no idea whether it will even attempt to follow that up or not. This is one of those things that, it becomes not annoying, but questionable. Like, are they actually going to get behind this and get somebody else to join this team? It just feels like things like that they kind of let fall by the wayside. One of the examples is the whole Campanelli Rah Rah dynamic. When they first hooked up, it was almost clear that Campanelli was a heel partnering with a babyface. She talked over Rah Rah. She basically yanked the microphone from in front of her. She treated her very subservient and very heelish. But they never flipped her heel, at least not yet. And the idea originally, I thought that they were going to do this whole deal, have Campanelli and Rah Rah partner up, because they kept the whole narrative going. They kept the narrative of Coach Campanelli basically bossing her around. I mean, she wasn't a bully necessarily, but she bossed her around just nonstop. But that didn't go anywhere. It was like a setup. It's like they laid out this setup for an angle, the split, and it didn't go anywhere. It's been months worth of this. Now it's kind of migrated towards their Abbott and Costello. That is the best way that I can describe them. These two are Abbott and Costello. They're just a comedy duo now. Campanelli is the straight woman that lines up the jokes. Rah Rah delivers the punchline. That's pretty much their dynamic. You know, see, Campanelli would be Lou Abbott, and Rah Rah would be Bud Costello. Yes, these are old vaudeville comedians, but it is, look them up, kids. Google them. You know, you can Google them about that. But if you've ever seen their routine or any one of the routines, you'll get what I'm saying. This is what they are. If you want a more modern version of it, look at, and even this is old. I was gonna say, look at the Wayans brothers. Look at Sean and Marlon. Marlon was the idiot of the duo. Sean did funny stuff, but he was largely there to be the straight man to the comedy. But that's what this is. It's just them doing stuff and trying to, and being silly. Now I'm gonna veer off for a second because while I'm talking about Campanelli and Rah Rah, I wanted to draw up a comparison. Because it was brought to my attention that one of my coworkers had not seen a hardcore match. I'm just going to call it a hardcore match. He had never seen a hardcore match before because WoW is his introduction to wrestling, period. So he saw the Schoolyard Brawl, which, I mean, he thought was entertaining, but he didn't, he's like, no, he didn't really see anything special in it, but it was entertaining. So what I told him was, okay, you haven't seen this, and I know you only really watch WoW, but I need you to look at this one clip. It'll be fine. It's not going to take too long. I mean, it'll probably give you about, 50, give me 15, 20 minutes of your time to watch that. When you have a moment. And he agreed. And I told him, go watch the Hardcore Team War on the NWA YouTube channel. This is also women's wrestling. The best way I could describe it is kind of like a mix of a cageless, rotating war games / Survivor Series. The rules basically being, you got 2 teams of 4. One from each team will be in the ring. They do not add on. They eliminate. So when one team member is eliminated, they go to the back. The next team member comes off of the floor and enters the match. And that'll keep going until one team is eliminated. So theoretically, you could have 4 people on one side left and 1 on the other. But, it was mostly a rotation between teams, back and forth. And they took top rope elimination, DQ, not DQ, because there was no disqualification. That was the whole point. But pinfall, submission, and top rope elimination is what they took. So anyway, I told him, you need to go watch this. If the Schoolyard Brawl is the only version of a hardcore match you're familiar with or if you've ever known, you need to be looking at this Hardcore Team War. And he did. And he came back to me, it's like, holy crap. I did not know these girls hit this hard. There's especially a spot in there where somebody just got clobbered in the mouth with a drop kick. I mean, it's something. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it too. Whoever you're out there listening, you need to go watch it. But this is a perfect comparison of contrast between what WoW does and what the NWA and most of the other wrestling organizations do. The first thing that I noticed about this, Pretty Empowered would be, they're the heel team. And surprisingly, if you look at them, they're like the NWA's equivalent of the Fabulous Four, I guess, if you want to make comparative notes. Largely pink and black in colors in their team colors, much like, the Fabulous Four. But they did exactly what I was suggesting for the Fabulous Four. I mean, not suggested, saying for the Fabulous Four for weeks. Those mirrors are ridiculous. The tools that WoW uses are ridiculous. They are not something that would knock anybody out. And it's hard to even suspend your disbelief to say that this tiny mirror, and I'm not even hitting you with the glass side, just knocked you out cold. What are you made of? Glass? This is ridiculous. Pretty Empowered walked out there with a steel chair spray painted pink. I think a pink billy club, and a bedazzled. I think it was the bedazzled billy club and a kendo stick, and one of them brought out pink brass knuckles. That is exactly what I said that the Fabulous Four should be doing. I said, lose those mirrors, and you don't even have to change the scheme. Just go online, buy a pair of brass knuckles, and spray paint them pink. You can customize this on your own. All it has to do is fit the narrative of the group. Once you do that on camera, it'll be fine. And then you hit the person. But then start thinking about, okay, that means one of two things. WoW is aiming this for an audience that probably isn't awake at 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night. If they're going to stick with stuff like, oh yeah, we got to use this yardstick to knock somebody out, then they're not aiming for that. They can't be. They had a schoolyard brawl. Now bear this in mind. And I so hope that you go and watch this Hardcore War so you can get the grasp of what I'm saying between the two. They had the schoolyard brawl, and they brought a bunch of things that were school related, and that's fine. They should have. I said it in that podcast. I stand by that. Everybody in that match has some relation technically to a school. Samantha Smart, the disciplinarian, the coach, and the cheerleader. So them having a schoolyard brawl, no problem. But the things that they used, dodgeballs, notebooks, notebook paper, the pencils, they had a bunch of little things that are like, okay, the hiding of the three-punch hole puncher was a nice touch, and I can understand that knocking somebody out. But if you can use that, why not use, brass knucks or anything else? And you really didn't even see it because she held it in her pom-poms. That might be the key. That like maybe it's a case of, well, we don't want these ladies using weapons. I don't know. Or we don't want to see them using weapons. Again, I don't know. But you've got these things coming out the ringside, and yet and still, the disciplinarian walks out week in and week out with this giant paddle of thick wood with her name carved in it. How is that thing not part of the schoolyard brawl? How was that she walked out with a weapon that was never used? How is that part of a schoolyard brawl? Or I should say, why is it not part of the schoolyard brawl? Why would you use notebook paper? Why would you use a notebook? Those things are just silly. And it doesn't do anything. So that was just a little bit of comparative note. I just felt like you had to talk about that so people can understand the differences between the two. When I talk about the NWA or MLW or Impact Wrestling, I know the audience that they're aiming for. They're aiming for 18 to 35, so basically. While I'm not sure. It looks like both in presentation of outfits, names, and weaponry, it looks like they've made this for kids. But then the time slot would suggest differently. The time slot would suggest that they're going for 18 to 35. Young males. But who knows? I cannot verify that one way or the other. Maybe one day, somebody come off of that show and spill the beans like, oh yeah, we was, this was our demographic that was aiming for, and who we wanted on the show, how many times we taped. Maybe they'll spill all the secrets. I don't know. But as of right now, I have no idea. The match, I don't think I talked about the recap of the mother trucks. I went into the backstage with Campanelli, but let me go back. They did set up the whole thing with the whole mother truckers deal. They did a brief recap there. I was like, all right, truck was stolen, outsmarted by Samantha Smart. They go try to get arrested. Now they've been helped out by the greatest attorney in the world, who I guess is licensed to practice in Tennessee too. Goes to Tennessee and she gets them out. She's like, you'll be out in the morning, but you owe me a favor. So I assume that they may turn heel. I don't know. We will see. The match that was following this segment with the recap of the mother truckers and the backstage vignette of Campanelli and Rah Rah is a tag team match. Ice Cold and Genesis versus Coach Campanelli and Randi Rah Rah. Now, this here, the match is fine. It was a cold match, but the match is fine. Now, there's really nothing in this other than we need to score a win just to kind of move things on. I have no idea what happened to Genesis extra tag team partner. Yeah, I fumbled over that, but I have no idea what happened with her partner's exodus. Ice Cold filled in for her, and I'm fine with that too, because that happens sometimes. You got to do it. I mean, hell, I was around at a time when Road Warrior Hawk left the WWE. That was filled in by Crush. He tagged in with Road Warrior Animal to go around defending fulfilling the remaining dates of the Road Warriors. But that was a weird team to watch, and this wouldn't be any different. Ice Cold and Genesis opposed to Genesis and Exodus. Where is Malaya Hosaka, by the way? Are they ever going to explain that, or is she just going to vanish into thin air and move on? This is a standard tag team match. The babyfaces start off strong until the heels cut them off. And they work. I really don't have any real beef or problems with the match. I thought the match and everything here was totally fine. This ended with Campanelli. I should say the heat is on Rah Rah. They kind of not lock her down, but they're cutting her off, making sure that she can't get the tag and all this stuff. All the things that that you expect out of a good tag team match. All right. They were trying to cut her off until she found her way to escape. Now, how did she do that? Ice Cold shoots Rah Rah into her corner. She comes in, charges with the double knees. When she makes the tag out to her partner, because I'm assuming Ice Cold is going to be the honorary member of Exile. And you know what? Now to think about it, maybe Malaya Hosaka has been exiled. Maybe Exodus has been exiled. But anyway, Genesis tags in and she picks up Rah Rah and what looks to be like for a spine buster, but that was not the case. Rah Rah actually hooked a front face lock on Genesis to prevent her from doing whatever, which I thought that was a great counter. But Genesis still had enough control over her. She walks her into the turnbuckle to be able to tag out to her partner. Once Ice Cold gets her to loosen that grip around Genesis' neck, then it sets up for what used to be called a heart attack. Except for instead of a clothesline, Ice Cold did a neck breaker. She did like a running neck breaker, grabbed the head of Rah Rah and sets her down. I was like, okay, that was a good move. That should have been the finish. It was a nice finishing move. And then for whatever reason, Genesis and Ice Cold are arguing in the ring. Like, get over there, go tag her, dude. And Ice Cold goes, not tag, but go pin her. And Ice Cold goes in, she makes the pin. But by that time, of course, it's too late. Rah Rah's able to kick out. She kicks Ice Cold off, and she makes the tag to Campanelli. Campanelli comes in for the cleanup, which is what she's there for. They had what I would consider a miss. I think this is a bit of a botch. When Campanelli tries to go for an enziguri on the back of Ice Cold's head, it looks like she shot a little high. But fortunately for the production people and the editor, they cut that out. Ice Cold gets thrown onto or placed on Campanelli's shoulders, and Campanelli uses Ice Cold as a weapon to knock Genesis off of the apron with her boots. And then once she puts her down, it's time for the end. The assisted senton bomb. This is following an airplane spin. I forgot she got up on her shoulders, spun her towards her partner. Her boots knocked over, and then she proceeds to spin Ice Cold around. Sets her down like a forward Russian leg sweep. Makes the tag, gets this senton bomb. Rah Rah tags back out so Campanelli can get the win. Much like she does because she's the boss of her, right? And there you have it. Randi Rah Rah and Coach Campanelli win another one. The former tag team champions continue to do well. Even though they've been, kind of held up in a way from the tag team championships, which is fine. They probably don't need it again at this point. Anyhow, I'm just saying, I've noticed, I see it, that's what they're doing. But that was it. They win. It was, like I said, it was a nice match, but it was a cold match, so it wasn't really going anywhere. We might get something off of Ice Cold and Genesis having words with each other after the match, but I'm almost not going to hold my breath on that. There's no surprise who won here. Going into this next segment, we've got a preview of Holiday and Siren versus the Tonga Twins. They cut into this video with another video of Holiday essentially taking credit for taking over the broadcast. And they talk about her, and they did this profile piece, which I thought was good. It kind of gave you some insight to her headspace. Like, I don't care if I win or lose. I just want to hurt people. It's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then you're doing fine because your win-loss record there is not stellar. But, again, it's well done, well crafted. There was a preview... Not that. I'm sorry. There was a character-breaking video of Lana Starr showing her being nice to dogs and whatnot. And my note that was why. Why would you do this? I understand that everybody here knows, everybody listening, everybody watching, wow, pretty much knows that wrestling is a work. I get that. But I do believe that you have to have some kind of standard there. And to have... to have a character-breaking video with your lead heel, because that's basically what she is. Lana Starr is their lead heel. It works against the heel. I mean, I understand, and it's a nice charity. I'm glad that she is taking care of dogs and all that stuff like that. But you're a bad guy. That charity should just happen and gone on. This is not one of those, like, I don't want to see that. It makes me want to root for you. It's the same thing I said with every other person when they did those vignettes. It's hard for me to boo you and root against you when you give me these things. And like, I want to boo her. She's taking in homeless dogs. She's saving puppies. Why would I boo this woman? So, no, I did not think that was there or needed to be there. I think it's, I think it's just a bad place to put that on the show. We need filler, so just put in some stuff. Wow also ran a video addressing Jungle Girl and her fight with cancer. The first note written there is, it's about time. She's been diagnosed with cancer well over a year ago. I mean, it's longer than that. But she's been diagnosed with that a long time. How do you not address Jungle Girl? She was loyal to that company. just absolute loyalty. I mean, look, she was there in 2001. And when they went on hiatus and then he came back 15 years later and asked for somebody to return to the show, she returned. She came back. That's loyalty. But what can you say? Is it should have been done a while ago. I'm glad that they did it, period. But it should have been done a while ago. This video addresses the cancer and her fight against it, and while supportive of that, her business to some degree, because it's taking place at an indoor Fasm gym. And I thought, again, outside of the timing of it, I thought this was very nice. I still maintain it should have been done a long time ago. They just never did for whatever reason. Then we get Miami Sweet Heat's promo, which is a good promo. You know, the promo fits them. And it also makes this where Lana Star has a hand-picked opponent. So it could circumvent the idea that they didn't earn it somehow. So let's go to the main event. As I suck down my coffee here, because I was losing some strength. But thank you for the wonderful blends of caffeine and coffee beans to get me all crunked back up again. So anyway, this might be a first for a while just in of itself. I don't know if I can recall that they've ever had a championship match that went 2 weeks in a row outside of when they first launched. I think Cage Heat did it when they first won the titles, and that was back in 2001. I mean, it might legitimately be over 20 years since any champion in the WoW has defended multiple occasions. And I mean, and not just defended multiple occasions. I mean, multiple occasions within one era. I mean, because you could argue that maybe Cage Heat came back and they got to defend when they got the championships given back to them, but they got the championships given back to them like 15 years later. Here, and we have to give the Miami Sweet Heat a lot of credit here. If I would say, I know they like to put that on Vicky Lynn McCoy, but I would say at this point, the centerpieces of the Fabulous Four kind of fall on their laps. They've done more championship matches than anybody else within the group. They went through the tournament. They defeated the Tonga Twins in the finals of that, even though, yes, they cheated, but they're heels. They're supposed to. They defended against Campanelli and Rah Rah. They lost, but then they got a rematch, and then they won. And then they went up against the Tonga Twins again, and now they're here. And I'm probably missing something. And they were part of the main event for the big 8-person tag. They have probably been the most significant portion of Miami's, I mean, not Miami Sweet Heat, but most significant portion of the Fabulous Four that I could really think of. This team was kind of labeled as the new generation, Stephy Slays and Jennifer Gen Z Florez. I keep carrying on about that. Now, I remember when they announced this, and I was thinking to myself, well, how are they getting a title shot? These two haven't won in weeks. They lost in tag matches, and they lost singularly. So I'm not sure what they would be getting a tag team title opportunity for, or title shot. I don't want to use a McMahonism. But the only explanation that they have that really comes close, and it's justifiable, is to have a Lana Star who is going to try and ensure that we get the most unqualified opponents as we can. That much, I mean, that part I like, and it makes sense because that sounds like something that a Lana Star would do. it works for the environment that took place in. Again, I would just refer to them as New Generation. The New Generation did not earn a title match. They did not win any number one contendership. They don't have a good track record at all. And singularly, I mean, they do okay, but that wouldn't justify getting a tag team match. So the only thing that makes it make sense is the Lana Star statement. It was kind of a small statement done within the promo, but I guess that's enough. But yes, I mean, if you go back and you're looking at Florez and Slays, they've lost over the last 3 weeks. So the ranking here for a team is not relevant, and either it means nothing or they're going with the story of Lana Star hand-picking opponents, which I hope is that, because the last time they tried this hand-pick opponent thing, they did it when they were on good grounds with Tessa Blanchard, or she was just on good grounds with wrestling in general. And she was getting opponents handpicked for her, which didn't make any sort of sense because she was handpicking opponents that were highly competitive. And, you know, the whole story was she was trying to avoid people, but somehow she was wrestling in these super competitive matches, even if they were 6 and 7 and 8 minutes long. But here, you know, like I said, all this works. The commentators also talk about Stephy Slays' career. This is one of those cases where, you know, we get to control the narrative again because they make it sound like the Bully Busters had some sort of good wrestling career. They didn't. You know, and I can say that because I don't work for WOW and I got nothing to gain one way or the other. And I like both of them. I really do. I like Keita Rush, and Stephy Slays has improved by leaps and bounds. But the Bully Busters as a team did not have a good wrestling career. Aside from their initial outing, I'm not, you know, now that I think about it, I don't even know if they won that first match. They might have lost. They had a really good intro when they were first introduced. Excuse me. They were like led to the ring by a high school marching band. I mean, you know, it looked good for, you know, however minor it might have been. It still looked good. And what was that? I think they were wrestling Tropical Storm, some team that didn't last. And I believe they lost. Now I have to go back and look at it, but one thing I do know for a fact, the Bully Busters as a team, they just had a whole bunch of losses heaped on them before they just ultimately split up, and then they got involved in a storyline that just never went anywhere. Stephy Slays got roped in by Abilene Maverick, a former WOW girl who was Barbie Hayden on the independent circuit, former NWA women's champion. And it was a case of Slays being lured in and being tricked, and Keita Rush trying to tell her that they're using you, and Slays being too naive to understand. Storyline that went absolutely nowhere. But that's neither here nor there. I digress on that. I'm just saying, I know that the commentators like to try to, the Bully Busters, they were great as the Bully Busters they were a constant loss. I mean, that'd be like saying the Mulkey Brothers were a good team. Look them up too, kids. All right, so the heat in this match was largely on Stephy Slays. The New Generation almost didn't even tag. I think most of this was a one-tag match as it related to the New Generation. Stephy Slays was in there for an inordinate amount of time, just getting beat up. So they got a lot of heat on Slays. I do not mind the match or how the match went at all. When you take the idea that every woman on this roster is supposed to be some sort of star, or we're all wild superheroes, if you take that out of the equation, if you just go off of past wrestling logic, this would just be a glorified squash match. That's all this was. This was a glorified squash match. It was a squash match that took place with two people that you know, opposed to just random wrestlers who came out of the blue. So you got Slays and Florez. And Florez, again, both of them did a good job. This is not a knock on either Slays or Florez. I think, and I said it before, I think they look good as a team. And they're fairly color coordinated. I mean, they're not both wearing the same outfit, but Florez has got the little purple outlines, which matches Slays' entire tone. So you can buy them as a team. And they don't seem like they're completely off kilter as a team. They don't have a lot of tandem offense that they do, like the Carlson Twins or Miami's Sweet Heat. They have tandem offense, but hey, they are sisters and they have tagged longer. They've been tagging for a couple of years now. The first notable tag team championships that I can think of that they had was at WXW in Florida, where they trained. Surprisingly enough, they were also kind of in a faction with Marina Tucker at that time. Now, Marina Tucker, for those of you who don't know, is now Penelope Pink. So there was already a synergy there with at least 3/5 of the, I know it's going to sound weird, 3/5 of the Fabulous Four. And I only say fifths because Lana Starr's in it also. So, that's the best way I can describe this match, is that just in your mind, remove the idea that Slays and Florez are quote unquote wild superheroes. Just look at them as this is going to sound bad, but just look at them as two jobbers or enhancement talents in this case. If you look at it that way, then this match is absolutely fine. And that's the only way you should. I mean, they're only there to try to facilitate a win for Miami Sweet Heat, which is fine. There was one spot in the match I thought was really nice, and it was it almost got it to us like, okay, they could have won, and so I thought that was good. I don't know who called that spot, but it was very entertaining. You have Florez, who got into the ring. She gets the hot tag from Steffi, who was able to finally break free from getting beaten up by the Twins. And Florez is trying to handle both of them because Stephy Slays is down, right? So she does the old double noggin knockers and all that stuff like that. They got a good camera shot of Lana Starr on the outside, like, what's going on? That type of thing. And there's a spot in the match where Florez comes off the top rope and she does a high crossbody. And I think it's Lindsay that catches her. She catches her, but Stephy Slays comes in on the side and gives her a drop kick right in the back. Drop kicks her own partner, which makes her push Florez down. Push Florez down on top of Lindsay. So she's got a good pin, but the pin falls right into the corner of Miami Sweet Heat. Laurie on the outside sees the cover, and she was good at this. It looked like she tripped herself trying to get into the ring, and that's an old spot, the old trip yourself up trying to get in, and I can't make it in time. So there was just like a half second that you're like, they might actually win here. But she staggers, almost trips up, but she does manage to get that save in at the last second. She drops the double axe hand on Florez's back, and she saves her sister. But they did it with such timing that it came off like they could have won. And I have to give absolute credit to these two, or these four. It was a masterful job in my view. Masterful that they almost yanked the rug out, at least mentally. They almost yanked the rug out from people that was watching it, because I walked into this thing thinking, okay, yeah, they're new generation is not going to win this, but they, just for a heartbeat, got me to believe that, they might pull this off. So anyway, once the save happens, then Lauren runs across the ring, nails Stephy Slays, and knocks her off of the apron. Now you have Florez in the ring at the mercy of Miami Sweet Heat. They shoot her in, and not quite a 3D, but kind of similar. Lindsay would be in the Devon spot. She picks her opponent up, picks up Gen Z. Lauren on the other side or behind her, grabs the top end of like the shoulders and head and neck of Florez and hooks her into essentially a DDT position. So it is like a high elevation spike DDT that they give Florez. And I thought that's a really good finish for them. It works. As so long as nobody kicked out of it, I was like, this works. I like this. I like this match. I like what they did. I like how they delivered the match in what was essentially a squash, but an entertaining squash. Squash matches do not have to be not entertaining. I mean, the squash match is there to be a showcase for basically the stars. And in this case, the stars were Miami Sweet Heat. There was no reason for them to lose, and they didn't. So they went through the entirety of the show, and then they got that off. And they continue to build, I guess, their legacy. Lana Starr gets up after this, and she cuts a promo. And I will say that she gets better and better and better at doing her promos. It just needs to make a point. She talks with a lot of conviction. She knows who Lana Starr is. It's just the standard Fabulous 4 promo on repeat at this point, though. There's no specific thing that she's saying like, hey, we're going to do this on this date for these against these people. There's never that. They're all very vague. And I go back to what we were talking about at the beginning when I put the Kevin Nash clip up talking about how you adjust for taped shows or the havoc that being on a tape show could create. And I think this is one of those things. It's like she doesn't know what the aim is at or who the aim for. Is just outside of dealing with the Island Dynasty, what else can you talk about? It's just go in there and say, we're the Fabulous Four, we're better than you, and we're never going to lose. It, like I say, it's the standard Fabulous Four promo on repeat. The only thing that was added to that was you only get a match if I say so. Now, if there ever was a time for Dave McClain to flaunt or his authority or something like that, it should be at some point when this when she's carrying on about, I get to call the shots and this, that, and the other. Now, how she's able to do that, I don't know. Any other time they've had Dave McClain pop in like, you don't call the shots, I call the shots. He's done that on a number of occasions with Lana Starr. I don't even know what this whole deal is because at times they go into this somewhat feud of Lana Starr and David McClain, which is absurd because where can you go with that? There is no blow off that you can have with Lana Starr feuding with David McClain, trying to take his TV show away from him, which again, also stupid. Now, I'm not saying that they're doing this now, but this is a storyline and angle that they did before. And I was like, really, come on. You're never going to win that fight. Who has ever won the old, I'm going to take over your show deal? And she doesn't even really do anything to try to take over the show. It's just, it's the Lana Starr show. She said that a couple of times. And, Dave McClain kind of allows it because he's amused by it, I suppose. But, again, it is generally a vague, generic promo. The only thing that kind of sat in this particular one that made a point was you only get a match if I say so. Which will, again, with the reverse logic of that, we can say, all right, now I can see why the new generation got that match. Because Lana didn't view them as I'm filling in blanks here. She didn't view them as a threat, so sure, you can have a match. What this does is this brings out the Tonga Twins to confront the Fabulous Four after the match. The note that I have is that, well, at least they keep this feud alive. That much is good. They are at least keeping this going. I did question where Leia Makona is and Tiki Chamorro. I mean, aren't they part of the Island Dynasty pack? Why are they letting the Tonga Twins go out here and try to confront them on their own? I can only assume that they're still part of the show. I can only assume that they will return at some point. But they almost don't even bring them up. You know, once they got past that one thing, you know, the 4-person or the 8-person tag, once they got past that and you know, some subsequent title shots, it's like the dynasty kind of dissolved. We don't see them. They don't cut promos together. We don't see them hanging out together. We don't see any of that. It's like it don't exist. So I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that. I don't know where they're going to go with that. I don't know if they're going to bring it back around. I don't know if they're going to acknowledge it. I just don't know. The episode in and of itself. First match, I mean, you got a debut match with BK Rhythm and Ariel Sky. That was perfectly fine. I thought that was good. Rhythm did her job and put Sky over. The Fury Americana promo drags this down. She tries. Now this is the credit that I'm going to give for Americana. She tries. She tried very hard. She ran out there and she fought and she gave it fire. She tried to give a fiery promo, but at this point they give her. This is like the second time they've given her something that we haven't seen. We never saw when Commander Spars turned heel and turned into Amanda Rodriguez and allegedly attacked Americana and Jessie Jones. We never saw the Heavy Metal Sisters bullying her son or stepping on her tablet or even the reasons why. So she is trying to make chicken salad here out of, you know, so I don't bust up the monetizations here or get pushed off. I'm not going to say chicken excrement. We'll call it that. Doesn't sound as good as the you know, the actual saying, but you get what I'm talking about. She's probably trying to make the best out of that, but at the same time, promos are not her strong suit. She at times looks like she's lost and she's trying to remember the dialogue or, you know, what was written for her or something along those lines. That's how she looks. I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's how she looks. And, you know, we got the whole, and my partner, she can't wrestle anymore. Really? When did that happen? Anyway. What was the next? The tag team match, Campanelli and Rah Rah versus Ice Cold and Genesis. You know, we've got essentially 3 cold matches. One match that didn't even go anywhere. Fury and Fury and Americana, that didn't even go anywhere. That was thrown out. Sky and BK Rhythm and this tag team match, Ice Cold Genesis versus Campanelli and Rah Rah. All of those matches were, everything that happened there was just fine. It was a B of, you know, that was the show. It can't be an A just because, like I said, the Americana promo drags that down. She did fine physically, but the promo drags it down. Doesn't make any, you know, it's just another one of those wild things. Like, just say this and then we'll go on and they'll buy it. or they'll just go with it. Like, you know, you can at least just shoot with your cell phone, somebody stepping on a tablet, if you and incorporate that into the show. But, you know, what do I know? The main event, it was good for what it was. It was just a means to pad on some wins for Miami's Sweet Heat and the Fabulous Four. You know, by proxy of Miami Sweet Heat, Fabulous Four gets built up with their victory. I seriously wish and hope that if they ever come across doing another hardcore match of any sort, that they actually try to get some sort of level of heat off of it and have some actual weapons or something along those lines, because, you know, the whole give me the mirrors and the rulers and all that stuff, that's just ridiculous. We don't shortchange your girls. If they're allegedly supposed to be the best women wrestlers in the world, and that's what they're presented as, They're presented as this is the cream of the crop. We're at the top of the list. We are the best women's wrestlers in the world. You will not find a better collection of women's wrestlers than here at WOW. That is the presentation. It is a false presentation because you've got so much talent out there. I mean, it's a hard field to fight. The only thing that they have that they can make claim over everybody else is that their entire show is dedicated to the women rather than a division. So they don't have to compete with AEW's division. They don't have to compete with WWE or Raw or SmackDown or NXT's division. But the women or Impact's division. But the women within those divisions get more wrestling leeway rather than just TV. When they want to deliver some heat, when they want to look like they're in a feud, when they want to look like they're in a fight, they have far more leeway to try to get people to believe or at least suspend the disbelief that they are angry and mad and they want to kill each other than the WOW will ever have. I mean, in order for them to get that, they would have to really change some of their rules. So that's what it's going to come down to. They're going to have to change some of the rulings about who we're aiming this for, and are we going to continue to push this for kids, or are we going to go with trying to make this work for the adults that are probably or should be up watching this? I mean, Saturday night in and of itself is just a hard night to try and get some people to watch TV in the first place. So at a certain age, you want to be out the house. But, you know, for those who aren't, you might want to tune into some wrestling. Now, here is one other thing that I want to talk about before we close this thing up is Saturday nights had been largely left alone as far as wrestling is concerned. Or I should say as far as WOW is concerned. They have had their run of the roost. You know, they have not had to deal with another competing wrestling program of any sort to eat into their audience. That may be about to change. Depending on what city you're in, what area, what time your WOW program comes on, that could be getting ready to change. I'm sure by now you have heard about AEW's new show, AEW Collision, which is set to air officially on June 17th. As I'm recording that means that is tomorrow as I'm recording this. Now, you probably hear this after I say it, but because this episode is going to be in a little bit of a time loop, it will upload probably after that. But like I said, as I'm recording this, that's tomorrow. They're ready. And their match that they have, or matches that they have, and this isn't all women, but we're going to say this is the show that they have going on right now. You got Buddy Matthews taking on Andrade El Idolo. You got Wardlow taking on Luchasaurus. Miro is in action. If you're looking for women's wrestling, you got Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale taking on Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. It should probably be a reasonable show to watch. I'm surprised that Punk is in there because that's pretty much the whole reason that they put the show together. But that's a whole different story and doesn't really matter at this point. The point of this is AEW's Collision. Potentially. I'm not going to say that it will because WOW's fan base is WOW's fan base, and they probably will not jump ship for any wrestling promotion, you know, much less AEW. But there are going to be some people that's watching that's, you know, if they're given a choice and they got access to to watch the show, then they're probably going to. I'm trying to see what I believe is set to air at 10 p.m. Saturday nights. Now, in some markets, that is going to be directly against Wow. I am really interested in seeing what the ratings are going to be. Now, getting Wow's ratings are not easy. I got to track those things down. But yeah, I'm going to be interested because up until this point, as I have read the ratings, the ones that I've seen, Wow averages about 250,000 people week to week. That's basically what they do. They average about 250,000 people week to week. If they are on at that time, then it may hurt them. Now I'm trying to look at it here and see where they're going to be on, because I think that sounds late for them. Okay, here we go. All right, so Wow may have just got a pass. They may have gotten a pass. AEW Collision is set to run on TNT at 8 p.m. on Saturdays. And it'll run for 2 hours, so it'll roll right into whatever movie of the week that they're putting on, or TV show. So potentially you could have a full night of wrestling. Now, again, that's not to say that this still leaves Wow unchallenged or untouched. A lot of times some people do not want to have some other wrestling promotion on the same night at all, much less that close. But if Wow begins to come on at 10 o'clock as you're watching CM Punk, let's say, in the main event, cutting a promo or explaining something or something like that, and it goes over, there's some people that probably forget to change the channel or what have you. For them, hopefully that is not a big issue. And I'm saying this sincerely. I hope that for their sake that does not start to do that. But again, you have to take into account that they do have Saturday nights. Saturday nights had been theirs unchallenged by any metric of wrestling, at least, since they premiered. Now there's something else there. And if TNT decides to go mucking around and change the time slots or push it back or push it forward, or, hey, we like this stuff, guys, let's just change it to 3 hours, I hope they never do that. I hope they never, ever, ever decide to, hey, let's make it 3 hours. But given TNT, sometimes, it's like, our viewers want to see this at 9 opposed to 8 or whatever the case may be. So that is possible. It is possible. But we will see. We'll look at this. We'll see how this goes. All I'm saying is, in the case of Wow, they probably should book the best that they can book. It's hard for them to do it now because I'm sure all of this stuff is in the can. I'm almost positive. But with a show like this going on, there's one or two options that they can get. It can either hurt or they can help them. It can hurt them if it starts draining away people watching wrestling, like they've had their wrestling fix and I don't feel like watching anything else. I just finished looking at AEW and I don't want to look at that. Or, it starts exposing things that AEW does that WoW does not. Or, things like that. So that's possible. On the other hand, it can have the opposite effect. It could, and, I'm sure WoW is going to have their fingers crossed for this. It might add into their viewership. You might have people that started watching wrestling at 8 o'clock and really, their appetite for it is not quenched by the time that show's over with. And they may be like, all right, well, now what else can I find? Ooh, there's all women's wrestling. There's Wow One. I'm going to look at this. So, there's the possibility of that. But it needs to be watched rating-wise. What might happen? I've seen the rating points for a while kind of trickle up and trickle down. The last time I looked at the ratings, I think the highest that they've gotten, and I wish I could remember what main event drew this, but the highest I've seen that they've gotten was about 350,000 across the country, rating-wise. But then it's also dropped down to about 198 or something along those lines as far as their viewership is concerned. And I know a lot of that is dependent on, here's the other side of that equation, them being in syndication. You have to find where WOW is in one market to the next. I've used Pittsburgh as an example. WOW airs in Pittsburgh on, what is that, WPCW, I think, if I remember right. But I know for a fact that they have pushed that show wherever they felt like they needed it for that day. They've bumped their prime time and slid the prime time up into the late hours, which caused WOW to slide down to the wee hours of the morning. They've been on as early as 10 o'clock there, and they've been on past 1. When you have things like that, and some people who don't either want to hunt it down or they don't have a DVR for regular TV broadcasts or something like that, some people just quit. Last thing you want is for people to have to struggle to find your program, because that is an easy way for people just to give up and like, you know what, screw this. So, I mean, those things are things to keep in mind as we go forward, as we look at the ratings, as we see how this new wrestling show is going to affect the WOW show, or, good, bad, or indifferent. It'll be interesting to see. So I will be keeping my eyes open for that. I'll also re-encourage you before I leave. If you looked at the Schoolyard Brawl on WOW, I am going to ask that you go to the NWA YouTube channel and look up Hardcore Team War so you can see the difference. It is a very noticeable, very visible difference between how they treat their hardcore. It's a very noticeable and visible difference between Pretty Empowered and the Fabulous Four. Go and watch that match. That is your homework assignment. Go and watch that match. If I remember, I'll just put the link below. But yeah, you need to go and watch that. And I am off to go watch the SFC Women's Tournament so I can see how this whole thing ran down. If you're not watching it, it will probably be a review. Again, congratulations to all the ladies involved. Big congratulations to Brooke and Creed for becoming their first champion. And on that note, I think we are done here, ladies and gentlemen. We got another one down and ready to roll. So I will wait till the next week so I can see what is going on with the next episode of WOW. And I can see, I'm going to try to look for these ratings to see if anything has changed. And if I see a downtick following the 17th, well, you know what's happening. And so, with that, I will make my exit speech that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we'll see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.